main line actually kind of acts a little bit as a divider between the more urban part of the city and the more agricultural rural part of the city. So right by the hospital. This park is actually new. So we're just going to kind of walk along for a ways. These are all cherry trees here, so it looks, stunning in the spring when the cherry blossoms are in bloom. On the other side of the track is spider lilies. So, not that long ago when the spider lilies were in bloom, that was impressive. And now we got these guys. I've always thought it would be interesting if someone could, I know you can do it, I don't know how to do it. Take a photo from that station when different flowers and blossoms are in bloom at peak, and then combine them together so you get all of them together basically. Cool. Here's an old style storehouse made out of stone. This one does not look like it's Ueta stone. So you see quite a few around here that are Ueta stone, which is a type of stone found not that far away, what's now Utsunomiya. And the reason Ueta stone was so valuable was because it was porous. And because it was porous, it was lighter than other stones, and it was very good at temperature regulation. So you can actually go down into the old mines. And it's kind of nice during the summer because it stays nice and cool. It stays actually kind of a very, cool from our summer brain perspective. It stays at pretty even temperature throughout the year. So it's actually used a lot for storage. So companies will basically rent out space in these mines, mostly to store sake, if I remember correctly. So the sake is stored inside this mine in Utsunomiya, and there's other food provisions that are stored there. It was used quite a bit for like a primitive refrigerator. There's also some caves. I don't think they're in Motegi, but they're nearby along the kind of north of Motegi, along that valley. So here we are. Pretty rural area on one side of the train tracks, and then the other side of the train tracks is the city. The train tracks is basically the divider between the two. So I don't live on this side of the train tracks, I live on the more developed side of the train tracks. Lots of rice fields, rice has been harvested. You'll see some doves, there's one flying right there. The doves like hanging around the rice fields after harvest, bugs, dropped grains of rice, anything that they can scavenge. There's still a little bit of unharvested. Hello Axel, how are you today? So yeah, we're just gonna walk along. You can see kinda, just barely way off in the distance. That's Hagafuji. So that's one of the famous mountains from the Haga district. Go to bed? It's early in the morning. Be a little late for going to bed, or quite early. Alright, you seem to have an issue with each other. And time zones. Yeah. So you can see here, we've still got some late blooming flowers. Those are cherry trees over there, they're bare. Cherry trees unfortunately drop their leaves pretty early. They don't really get foliage like maple, ginkgo, some other trees do. So they don't have a great autumn look, which is too bad. You know, if they have a nice yellow leaf, but it pretty much turns yellow and falls off instantly. So if they did like stick around, it probably would be one of the nicest ornamental trees. Because in spring, you get the cherry blossoms. Summer, you get the leaves and the shade. Autumn, you get the foliage. That's kind of cool. You can just barely make it out. Well, thank you. But there's Nantai Sun. So those are the peaks in Nikko. This is why I don't like zooming in, because it's hard to zoom out. Okay, there we go. My phone doesn't like zooming in and zooming out while filming for some reason. So there's Nantai Sun. So you can oversee over there, Nikko National Park. This sun. Oh shoot, what's the next one next to it? I've hiked it. I hiked part of it. I hiked Nantai Sun 2 years ago. I was actually in Nikko on Sunday for the hockey game. So you can just barely see the peaks of Nikko National Park, but it's getting much clearer. So generally in this area, it's much clearer in winter than summer. So summer, you really have no chance of seeing across the Kanto Valley. Where winter, especially towards the mornings, you do as it gets colder. So that's evidence it's starting to get cooler. Hello, Stuart. How are you? Just going for a little morning walk. I dropped my kid off at kindergarten. I was like, I feel like walking. I gotta get back into shape. I'm getting too fat. Some of it's also work schedule. I was working a lot of nights recently, so basically I dropped my kid off at school. I'm like, I want to go to sleep. I'm good. You know, don't love my day job. That hasn't changed. Yeah, we're in a pretty flat part of the Kanto Valley here. In the distance, you can see a little bit of the mountains in Nikko. You look that way, you can see a little bit of the mountains that kind of define the Tochigi-Ibaraki border. Sort of nestled in on both sides. Somebody's dog. I get to zoom in enough? Yeah, you can't really see them. So those mountains that you can just barely see, those would be the Nasu Mountains. There we go. So the Nasu Mountains, the mountains in Nikko, they're all part of the same central range. They are kind of mentally broken up. Also, access-wise, they're broken up. So most of the mountains in Nikko, you're going to enter through Nikko National Park. You're probably going to enter by Chizenji, Kurifuri. You could do the old Pilgrim's Way. I tried that. I have a video coming out about it. It's not very much fun. I won't do that again. Or you could basically kind of enter from Lake Unico, but it's a bit of a roundabout way. Where the Nasu Mountains, you're probably going to access them from Nasu or maybe the Nasu Ropeway. Even if you want to start at Station 0, you're going to start in Nasu. I don't know if there's a way to connect them. Yeah, unfortunately, the camera's not as good as a human eye at distance. So you zoom in on mountains and it's like, oh, there's some foggy blue thing there that really you're only going to recognize if you know what you're looking for. Kind of like sometimes other hikers and stuff, I'll see photos they take from a peak and they'll be like, oh, you can see Fuji. And somebody we were talking to was showing us a photo. Me and my wife was there. And my wife was like, where's Fuji? I was like, oh, it's right there. I can see it. It's a little bump. Because you're looking at it from like I guess you're 3 prefectures away at that point. Because you got to go through Tochigi, Saitama, Yamanashi. I actually, the next long form video I have coming out, which will come out someday, I promise. I actually could see Fuji from where I was hiking early in the morning, but it's just a little bump on the horizon at that point. One of those cases of you're only going to recognize that's Fuji in the distance if you really know to look for Fuji in that direction. This place is interesting, sad. So they actually built up quite a bit of stuff here by the river. And, there's quite a few shops and little stores and stuff. And then COVID just killed it. So on the left side of the road here, there's Dog Run. Dog Run, they had all of these little stores and shops. You could watch the trains go by, especially on the weekends. You have the steam train that goes by twice. Once going to Motegi, once coming back from Motegi, which is in the north. And then COVID came. And, that killed a lot of businesses. Made a lot of them struggle. I'm not sure how economical it ever was. Part of the issue is it's not near the station. There's not a ton of parking around here. But you can kind of see the stores that they had. The Dog Run is still running. People need somewhere to run their dog. They don't want to take them up into the mountains. A lot of the dogs you see here are smaller breeds. Makes sense. Don't want them to get tussled up by a wild boar. Little dogs, they think they're really brave. And they act really brave. And then they run into a wild animal. Bravery doesn't do you very much good. But the owners of the Dog Run, they still have their cafe here. So I think that's the only business in here that's still running. Those are kind of cute. Squirrels are cute. I'm just walking along. I'm going to get to the Gogyogawa, and then I could change direction at that point. I started at the station. There's the dog run. Most of the time I've been fishing, I haven't been live streaming it lately. I should get back into that. Some of it's just timing, mornings. So a lot of times I have to take my daughter to school, of course. So if I do fish in the morning, I've got to make it a little quick and short because I got to get back and bring her, unless I do it on the weekends. And I've been having a lot more night shifts recently. Those are the Nikko Mountains there. Those are the Nasu Mountains there. So that has been a little bit of a pain. Should get back into live streaming fishing though. Oh yeah, no, that's that way. I actually was thinking that would be our destination for today. Off to the pond. I've also been running into that thing where I'll go fishing, I have some footage, and it just doesn't feel very good. And I feel like I've already released enough mediocre fishing videos. Or that they're not somewhere or something new. That it's, fishing for carp in the Gogyogawa again, which we're almost at. Or, fishing the same tournaments and things like that. That, I don't do that well in anyways. That I'm more there for the fun. I had this thing for a while. I was trying to make. So sometimes people's pet koi, the colorful ones, escape into the waters. And so I had this thing for a while where I was trying to film a video of catching one of them. A particular one, actually, a very nice color, very large one that I kept seeing in one of the canals. So over the summer, I tried multiple times. Here's the Gogyogawa. I tried multiple times over the summer to catch that particular fish. People on the trail, so I'm just going to point this at the water. And I never succeeded. I never managed to catch it. Things like, I thought I was going to catch it at one point and a different carp grabbed the bait. Things like that would happen. So a lot of that footage, I didn't want to make a video out of it. So some of it was I didn't have a story there that I felt was interesting. That it was like, all right, I'm going to go chase this particular fish that lives in this canal because of its color and because, it's interesting, and then just never worked out. And I haven't seen it in a while, which makes me think that somebody caught it and kept it. So there was a few attempts in August and quite a few attempts in September to catch that fish. Just didn't work out, unfortunately. Hoover Bridge. He's got a carp fishing setup on his bicycle. extendable rods, almost like a small ocean fishing rod, I guess. And then looks like in Japan what's called 7 Go, which would be 7 Go fishing line is like 35-ish pound. I think, yeah, 7 Go would be about 35 pounds. A lot of it's really not so much the weight of the fish, it's the getting dragged on the bottom, the rocks and stuff that can be in these rivers and canals, branches, stuff like that. I switched to that at one point because originally I had this pretty cheap 15-pound line that I bought in the US, which worked as long as the fish didn't drag too much on the bottom, or, you know, get the line wrapped up in a branch, things like that. Because some of these, this one, the Goguryeo is not bad, but some of the canals and some of the rivers, there can be a lot of stuff on the bottom that the fish can get to try to drag the line across, which makes problems. All right, so now, let's see. That double peak thing in the distance, way off, if you can see it, that's scuba. That's that's the shortest of Japan's 100 famous peaks. Probably one of the most popular too. If you go there on a holiday or some weekends, just absolutely crowded with people. A little ridiculous. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I wonder if it or Fuji's more climbed. So one of the nice things about scuba from a tourism perspective is that there's the Scuba Express from Akihabara, Tokyo to Scuba Ibaraki. So you take that, you get on a bus, drops you about halfway up the scuba peak at the shrine. And then from the shrine, you can actually take a folio car, one of those like mountain trains that uses a cable. They have one of those that you can then take pretty much the rest of the way up. That stops at that saddle between the two peaks. And then from there, it's a very short walk to either of the peaks. There's restaurants and stuff up there. It's a very, very like family-friendly thing. Now, on those popular days, there's usually a very long waiting line to take that folio car. I think it's called the folio car, up and down. Yeah, so you can kind of see. Wish you had a camera that could show it. The low point between what are generally considered the Nikko Mountains and the Nasu Mountains. Train crossings over there. That's a field. Oh, they've been doing a ton of work on this road. This is the only major road we're going to cross on our trip. So this road basically connects the kind of the central side of the Haga district. So this is 61, the 81, no. So if you take this, eventually it's going to split to 294, I think it is. I don't drive a car. I actually don't have a license. And that would take you to Mashiko and Motegi. Yeah, they've been doing a ton of work on this road, expanding it, making it wider, trying to make it a little safer. crosswalks. Well, some of it is that's a bus stop, right? And there were complaints about how unsafe that bus stop is. I imagine probably quite a few students from, this collection of houses in here probably use that bus stop. Lots of piping. Lots of cutting. Depending on what they're cutting, this place sometimes smells really, really nice. And sometimes on holidays, particularly in the winter, if you come by, they're like burning the excess scraps and stuff. So it'll have that nice smoky smell. So if you look out there, that hill closest to us, it has a big antenna on it. That basically, it's all on the Mocha side. But once you go off of it, then you're in Mashiko. So all of it that we can see is in Mashiko. Once you go over it, all of it that we can see, you're in Mocha. Once you go over it, you're in Mashiko. Oh, here comes a train. I wonder from which direction? North or south? Well, should be from the south. So that's the direction we're going. In fact, the next bus stop is our next train stop is actually our destination. So yeah, we're still in Mocha. See the new Lawsons across the field there. Some road tilling going on. I think that's an onion field over there. So historically long ago, the Kanto Plain, this area, used to flood a lot. So it's generally, oh, hey, there's a big caterpillar. Say hi, Mr. Caterpillar. It's your big screen debut. Yeah. Winter's coming, buddy. Already getting cooler. Sorry, what was it? So traditionally, this area was very prone to flooding. So if you kind of take a really high level view of this area, it's kind of a bunch of bowls. Bowl, bowl, bowl. And a river would run through those bowls. So it kind of makes the topography look like this. And so you'll have these ridges that basically separate the different watersheds. And then in the lowlands, the flat areas there, by the rivers, the soil would actually be pretty good. And some of that is for a million years, whatever geological time scale, they would flood, then the river would change banks. And the river would run one place for a while, and then it might flood over and change banks, change course. So you'd be left with actually pretty good soil historically. The thing is that you of course want to farm that, especially rice cultivation. You need lots of water. So the Yayoi period of Japan, here's one from the north. The Yayoi period of Japan, rice cultivation, agriculture is brought from Korea, China, brought over. People start practicing agriculture. And this spread, particularly as the Yayoi people and then later the Yamato court spreads further and further north, they bring this agriculture. Now it needs a lot of water, so of course you're going to set up in these valleys in the Kanto Plains. Great, you get water, now you have to control the water. So there's lots of water control systems in place. Let's watch the train. But that also meant that people wanted to farm and live in areas that had dangers of flooding. Not this one, but the Kinagawa. I should do a live stream walk about the Kinagawa. The Kinagawa River was particularly bad about this. Kinagawa basically kind of translates into angry demon river. If you go up to Kinagawa Onsen, their mascot is a demon. So what would happen is every so often the Kinagawa would flood. So the Kinu River origin is up in those mountains near Nikko. So what that means though is that if there's a lot of snowfall, it has a lot of water to draw from when it melts, and particularly if it melts quickly, this can become a problem where there would just be so much water that it would start flooding into the Kanto Valley. And so there would be incidents you'd read in history where it's like Kinu River overflows, 134 people dead. Next year, Kinagawa River overflows, 50 people dead. And that was just like a thing. And there was a particularly nasty one in the later Edo period where, because of an earthquake, the upper parts of the Kinagawa River got blocked, and so they formed a lake. And that cut down on the amount of water for about 30, 40 years until there's another earthquake. That dam breaks, and the area where Utsunomiya is now just gets flooded, and a bunch of people die. I think it was 280, I want to say. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure about that number off the top of my head. But basically, tons of people get killed, damage, extensive flooding. And the Izukaido, which was a road, was basically rebuilt because that first lake, that earthquake, flooded the Izukaido, and you could no longer use the Izukaido. So for the Izu domain, it was actually really good for them financially that this lake disappeared, because now they had a better trade route. That's the entire not the entire, that's a big part of why they built the Izukaido. The other was, at the time, there was this thing called the alternate attendance policy. And what this was is this was a rule of the Tokugawa shoguns that the daimyos, the samurai lords under him, basically had to come spend every other year living in Edo. So they'd spend 1 year in their domain, 1 year in Edo. Now, the closer you lived to Edo, the easier this was. But if you lived a little somewhere remote or further away, it became a bigger pain. So they built the Izukaido for basically to be able to travel from Izu to Imachi Nikko. Imachi Nikko at the time was a major trade center. It was where I think 3 different roads met. 3 different major Kaidos met there, including the Izu Kaido. And from there, you can take the Nikko Kaido from Imachi to Edo. So it made trade easier, and it also made fulfilling this alternative policy, alternative attendance policy, easier to fulfill. There were, what was his name? There was a lord, his family was actually exempt from it. So if you were classified as a March lord in the Edo period, you didn't actually have to attend for the alternative attendance policy. So if you were a March lord, you basically got to stay home. Now, I think some of those guys did show up occasionally to Edo, rub elbows, shake hands, so to say, hobnob, network, put in some FaceTime at the office, so to say. Was the Masamotos? I'm trying to remember the big clan up in Hokkaido. Since they were classified as March Lords, they didn't actually have to come visit Edo. I think most of them did at some point in their lives. And then there was also the complicated thing about the Ryukos. So, it's now Okinawa, Ryuko at the time. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. They were like part of Japan, but not part of Japan. So, they technically paid tribute to China, which the Tokugawa shogunate was not going to do. So, for that reason, the Japanese, the Tokugawa government wasn't entitled to trade with China, because China's thing was, all right, if we're going to do trade with you, and we're going to have these economic relationships, you have to pay tribute. You have to, recognize us, recognize the emperor as the son of heaven, basically, and reinforce that ideological, that worldview of China being the center. Well, for a lot of Japanese governments, that was not something they were going to do. There are some periods where they did do this, but it was pretty rare, and it's mostly pretty historical. Now, they still wanted trade with China. So, they basically turned the Ryuko, the Okinawan kingdom, into a puppet government. So they basically authorized the Satsuma domain to invade the islands, and they kept the previous lords in charge. They were allowed to stay in charge. He was still called the king, whatever, but they were basically controlling him. He was kind of their puppet. And so then the Chinese would trade with the Chinese through them under the guise of, oh, this is the Ryukyu kingdom, it's now Okinawa. They're doing the trade with China. But in reality, it's Japan. They're just using them as a front. And also, there's the security side of, you don't really want, there was also the security side of controlling those islands, keeping them friendly, or at least removing any possibility of them turning hostile. So that was how they traded with China. Even though, the period, Japan was technically isolationist. But usually we overestimate and we overplay their isolationists. They still did quite a bit of trade. It's just, it was authorized and centrally controlled by the Tokugawa government. The Red Seal ships, they called them. So they had trading ships. It's just they were licensed. If you were going to be trading outside of Japan, you needed to be part of a licensed crew, a licensed ship, a licensed expedition. They weren't really that isolationist. I think it gets a little overplayed. They were also trading with Korea. That was a little more complicated, but same thing. There was a bit of a shell game of like, oh, like this family is trading with the Koreans, but they're really licensed, supported, and backed by the Takagawa government. There's also a bit of trade with Vietnam, what's now Vietnam. It wasn't called Vietnam back then. What was it called back then? And then the Dutch. So originally, they did do quite a bit of trade with the Portuguese through Macau. But that ended up eventually kind of collapsing, and then they kind of changed it to trading with the Dutch. And so the Jerma was this, it was an island at the time. It's now part of the mainland. It's been filled in, or main island. It's not the main island. Okay, so outside Nagasaki, they had this island called the Jerma. They're like, okay, look, we're going to turn the Jerma into a trading port where we'll trade with the Dutch. They can live there. They're here, but they're not here. They're like away. They're on this island that's not part of the main island. So that was kind of the deal with the Dutch for quite a while. Now, so the Dutch lived there. They had houses there. They lived there. They had quite a bit of contact locally. There were even, half Dutch kids running around. And the Dutch also controlled Taiwan for most of the time. So the Dutch controlled Taiwan, so there was a bit of a, those two trading networks were actually very combined too. So one of the big products that the Dutch were selling to Japan were things like deer hides. So deer hide was actually important for leather work because there wasn't a big cow beef industry. So if you wanted leather, it was usually deer leather. The problem was that the leather was also used in armor, and so in the Sengoku period, they did a pretty big number on their deer population. So then the Dutch were like, oh yeah, we'll sell you deer. So they started harvesting those deer in Taiwan. They're a very close species. They're same species, different subspecies. It actually kind of did the same thing to the deer in Taiwan. Put a pretty big dent in their population numbers. Now Japan's kind of got the opposite issues. In some places, there's just way too many deer. Like Nikko, it's ridiculous. Too many deer. Oh, here we are at the pond. I actually do a lot of my fishing live streams are here. Actually, a place in Mashiko I keep meaning to do. I did a fishing live stream there once, and I keep meaning to go back there. It's more of a trip. Here we are. If you catch bass or bluegill in here, you should kill them. They're not supposed to be in here. They actually did some work on these. So they redid some of these platforms, which is nice. They added a wire here. I think they want people not fishing on the bridge. The wire's pretty new, actually. All them screws. Little island. A nice place to fish. So there is carp, Amur carp, koi, in the local dialect in here. And then there is Japanese white carp, white crustacean carp. Funa. A lot more funa than anything else, I think. I had this thing last year where I was like, I gotta catch a funa white carp on a live stream. And so whenever I had the camera rolling for a live stream, I just seemed to be cursed. Like, I couldn't land the fish would break off. I would catch a fish like 3 minutes before the live stream starts, right? I'd put everything together, I'd throw out my rod, get the camera ready for the live stream, boom, catch one. Or I'd run out of battery, or the camera would overheat and turn off, and then boom, I'd catch one. That seemed to be like a thing for a while, annoying as it is. Yep, and there's the station right on the other side. We'll stop for a minute. Pretty nice view actually from the bench here. There's a group that fishes it pretty regularly. They're all local guys, farmers and stuff, retirees. And there's a group of them that they're more of a social club sometimes. You know, they're the type that'll sit down, put their rods down, put everything away, sit down here and have, you know, an hour and a half lunch break in the middle of the day. One of them, I don't think he takes his fishing rod out very much. A lot of times I see him, he's just talking. His stuff isn't even set up. His line's not in the water. He's just talking. So for him, it's social club. All right. Let's, I don't know. Let's go south. It's only been like 50 minutes. Helicopter. There's a lot of helicopters coming through here. I think there's a military base nearby. There's actually a shrine, maybe an hour, not an hour, a few kilometers north of here that does blessings for helicopters. So their parking lot, they have a parking lot, and then they also have helipads for landing helicopters. Then the priest blesses the helicopter. Kind of interesting. It does look like a military helicopter. Actually, you know what? He is kind of heading in the direction of that shrine. It should be about that way north, because it's Nishibari, I think, or Haga. I think it's on the line between the two. Actually, I think it's technically over the line and no longer in Haga district, which is the district I live in, and the district we're in right now. Like I know that person. All right, so we made it to the pond. We'll kind of follow this canal for a little ways. Oh, they trimmed this park up. So, lots of little parks in Japan, but you know, it's like anything. Maintenance is a pain. So some of them are in better condition than others. This one, the grass was getting pretty long. They give it a nice trim. nice thing about this park is it has a water fountain. Yeah, so those benches were pretty much hidden by grass, which is too bad. It's actually a really nice park. Just, you know, it's in an odd spot. Yay, water. Which I guess is normal. It happens. We use that enough. A kind of normal park. Bathrooms, some benches, covered bench. I wonder if this bridge used to go to something before they built the solar farm. I actually don't know this bridge. This is probably mostly agricultural runoff. Water being, so basically a release for the water to be removed from the rice fields. I've actually never gone out on this bridge. That is kind of pretty. Yeah, you can see that's probably runoff or a place to remove water from the fields off to the north side. This is running almost due east-west. No, north-south. So that would actually be the east side. Almost northwest. Almost north-south. There's the train tracks. Okay. All right, let's continue southwards. These are cherry trees. This place is actually pretty in the spring. Unfortunately, this spring they hadn't actually trimmed it, so it was kind of a grassy mess. Alright, we'll peel around and go south. So, actually pretty standard for Japanese park. Some cherry trees, water fountain, some benches, bathroom. Oh, this is a ginkgo tree. So this tree, very soon, will start turning a very, very, very bright yellow. I think it's beautiful. I like the ginkgo tree in autumn when it's turned and changed colors. I think it's kind of a spectacular tree in that regard. We'll go down, I think, to the next park and then we'll take a right. Or I might end the live stream at the next park, I'm not sure yet. These are new. Newish. Doves. So there's kind of this interesting dichotomy where you'll have, lots of new construction, especially inside the more metro part of the city, or urban part of the city. I wouldn't say metro is the right word. And then you'll get out of it, and then there'll be lots of abandoned houses. In fact, even inside the city, there's a lot of these abandoned houses Some of it is, particularly in rural areas of Japan, the population is shrinking. A lot of these municipalities are in danger of dying out, basically, with not enough people and a tax base to support them anymore. It becomes a question of what do we do with them? Do we make our existing cities bigger by folding more and more areas into it? And, well, that's going to be costly for those cities. That's also why you will see, like, houses for sale for very cheap, and the families are just trying to offload them. They don't know what to do with them. You know, it's grandma's house out in Tochigi, Iwate, Aomori, and, you know, the kids have moved to Tokyo, the kids have moved to Osaka, or there isn't really anyone to take it over. I do think there's starting to be a little bit of a turning point with those where, you know, people have bought them up. A lot of them have turned into, particularly in touristy areas, that people are buying them and turning them into Airbnbs, or, you know, some type of rental investment property, which is very good. You know, it does something with the property, increases the city's tax base, which is why some cities have been more aggressive about trying to get rid of them off the books, sell them than others. But, you know, there's other ones that are not in a touristy area, and it's a much harder sell as far as an investment property. There was this theory at one point that more and more companies were going to move to work from home, and that was going to help out rural areas because more people would leave Tokyo, leave the major metropolitan areas, that kind of Tokyo, Osaka urban band, and move to cheaper rural areas. Well, that hasn't quite worked out as planned. We didn't see a lot of companies in Japan adopt a, you know, majority work from home or complete work from home atmosphere. So yeah, another park. Cherry trees, benches. This one got cut too recently, probably at the same time. Oh, there's a carp right there. Actually, this is a really nice park. Always bicycled past it. Something new is being built over there. When my sister and my brother-in-law came and visited Japan, one of my brother-in-law's comments was about how, wow, almost every park has a bathroom. There's so many public bathrooms. So this is kind of notable as being one of the few parks without a public bathroom. Although there's a park not that far away, just saw that did. There's a train station nearby, which also does. Say one of the things I don't like about this gimbal, it is a cheap gimbal, I will admit, so I can't complain, is that you have to open it all the way and then close it back down to the height you want if you want to use it as a tripod. Anyways, this has been an hour. Everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. If you're watching on the replay, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you on our next adventure. I'm not sure where we'll go next. Maybe I should put a community poll about where we should go for a walk next for these live streams. Anyways, I will see you in our next adventure.